Mm. 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 Mm.
So how could you possibly get involved with a complicated legal case? Hi, I'm Joe Williams. I'm a mesothelioma trial attorney, and I want to tell you that getting involved with asserting your legal rights as a victim of mesothelioma is not as complicated for the victim as you might think. There's one basic involvement that a victim of mesothelioma has in every mesothelioma case. They have to establish how they were exposed to asbestos. And the discussion about the ways a victim was exposed to asbestos is really just the story of that victim's life. All the things that that person did when they worked and when they were at home, if they served in the military, the jobs they had, the interactions they had, home projects they did in their house, construction projects at home, vehicles, cars that they might have worked on. Maybe they tinkered in their garage, changed brakes in cars. These are just some of many examples of how people can be exposed to asbestos during the course of their life. But what's important is, this is just the story of that person's life and all the exposures that could have happened during the course of that life. And that's what we need to do. We need to memorialize that life story. And we usually do it in the form of a deposition. And the victim's involvement is primarily in regard to that deposition and in regard to memorializing the potential exposures to asbestos that they had. But all of the other nuances of a lawsuit, the day-to-day proceedings, any dealings with the court or judge or things like that, that's what lawyers do for the victim and their family. So while a victim is really suffering through the diagnosis of mesothelioma and its aftermath, the victim shouldn't be stressed about any legal proceedings that they should get involved with, because it's really not as complex for the victim as they might think. And why am I telling you this? I'm telling you because you have questions about mesothelioma. I'm Joe Williams. I'm a mesothelioma trial attorney, and we answer these questions every day. We represent mesothelioma victims and their wives and families each and every day. And if you have questions, I invite you to contact our office and we'll answer your questions. Thank you for watching.
The job is hard because you can't save your client. You want to, but you can't. So you do the next best thing, which is you make sure that their family is going to be okay when they're not around any longer. And that is the most important thing that we do. Another thing that I've noticed a difference that we make is because of what has occurred, these families are able to better themselves and even send children to college that they never would have been able to send to college, you know, put their kids through really great schools. I mean, in that sense, it makes a difference. It's never going to be enough to offset the loss of their husband or their father or their mother or their wife, but at least it's something. And to be able to help people who you would never wish that anyone ever be in the situation that they're in, but they come to you. They're asking you for help, and to be able to do that for them it's amazing. It's humbling. Everybody here is great. They're easy to work with. They're smart. They're professional. They're creative, and they really take this job seriously. And it makes all the difference in the world, because you can't do this job unless.
When meeting with any mesothelioma attorney, ask how many mesothelioma cases they have handled, how many went to trial, and how many were settled before trial. It is also important to ask his or her success rate. Experience with many cases is not valuable if the attorney rarely receives an award for the client. Additional questions to ask of the mesothelioma attorney are whether he or she has handled a case against the particular defendant involved in your case, and, if so, how that case was resolved. Another question to ask is how successful the attorney is when cases go to trial. Many attorneys who negotiate large settlements for clients are less skillful in the courtroom. Ideally, you want an attorney who is comfortable negotiating but does not hesitate to take a case to trial if he or she feels like it is in the best interest of the client.
I remember reading how actor Steve McQueen died from mesothelioma as a result of, he also was inhaling asbestos when he worked in a shipyard as a young man. Then later he went on to racing cars. Now, how long, though, does it take for an asbestos-related disease to develop?
Well, that's the thing. It could take many years for an asbestos disease to develop, anywhere from 12 years to over 50 years from the first exposure. So in Steve McQueen's case, he could have worked in a shipyard as a young guy, and then he developed mesothelioma when he was in his 50s, still a young man. And no one knew where it came from. He was an actor. But because he had it much earlier in life, that was enough, and it could take up to 50 years.
You'd have to really think back about everywhere you worked and where you were and who you may have been around.
In fact, one of the important things that we have to do in following up in a lawsuit on behalf of people is developing a very detailed occupational history, because most people do not know how they could have been exposed, unless they were a worker. But we have to sometimes take people back through when they were a child And if their parent worked in a shipyard and all of a sudden a light goes over the head, sure, my dad worked at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. That's enough. But people don't know that.
Have you been diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer due to asbestos exposure? Then you may be entitled to significant compensation. Asbestos trusts have been established and billions of dollars have been paid to people with lung cancer or mesothelioma caused by asbestos. To see if you qualify, call attorney Matthew Schaefer right now for a free phone consultation. 1-800-871-7397. Calls are answered 24 hours a day. Speak to mesothelioma attorney Matthew Schaefer right now to see what your case may be worth. For over 25 years, Matthew Schaefer has fought for injured workers, and he can help you too. If you have lung cancer or have been diagnosed with mesothelioma, call attorney Matthew Schaefer right now. 1-800-871-7397. Have you been diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer due to asbestos exposure? Then you may be entitled to significant compensation. Asbestos trusts have been established and billions of dollars have been paid to people with lung cancer or mesothelioma caused by asbestos. To see if you qualify, call attorney Matthew Schaefer right now for a free phone consultation. 1-800-871-7397. Calls are answered 24 hours a day. Speak to mesothelioma attorney Matthew Schaefer right now to see what your case may be worth. For over 25 years, Matthew Schaefer has fought for injured workers, and he can help you too. If you have lung cancer or have been diagnosed with mesothelioma, call attorney Matthew Schaefer right now. 1-800-871-7397.